All right, it's the question everyone wants to know. What's the difference and why do I choose a hinge release versus a silverback? Too smooth or the silverback plus? One's a hinge and one is tension. Either of these releases are going to establish such a critical part of becoming an archer and unlocking an entirely new level. And that similarity between these two is the surprise release and that shot going off when you don't expect it. That's the common ground. The difference is there's two different ways to get there. With a hinge release, this works off movement. The easiest way to talk about it is this is like a seesaw. And the way a hinge works is by this hook traveling on this moon, just like a trap door. And as this rotates and it falls off the trap door, that opens up and the arrow's gone. With a tension release, Silverback Plus, the way this is working is I'm holding my safety down, I'm letting off my safety, and then I'm pulling harder until I hit that established weight for that release to open up, and it's going off with a surprise. So both releases give me a surprise. And I can tell you, when I had target panic in the early stages of my archery career, I fixed my target panic with a hinge release. There was no tension release at that time. And what I loved about the hinge release is that I really had to learn to be patient on the target. And that's one of the big differences is with a hinge, it's a waiting game. You're patient, but you have to move this release. There's different ways to shoot a hinge release. I'm not going to go into the details about that. I shoot mine with relaxation. You can see me relaxing my index finger and that seesaw started to pivot and I got my surprise shot. With a hinge release, that is what you're doing. You're learning to be patient and wait for the shot. It's really a waiting game. And it seems like it's more of a defensive approach to overcoming target panic or achieving a perfectly surprised shot, because you're really moving this release to a spot. In this case, I have a click here, so I move it to a click, and now I'm waiting and manipulating my hand position until that goes off. With the tension release, like a silverback, you're on the offensive side of that, and you're pulling that elbow back and you're building wall pressure, and you're just driving that elbow back and back and back until you get that release to go off. So the surprise is the same, but the difference of getting there is really what separates those two releases. Now, what I'll tell you is that I still enjoy both of those releases because the end game is a flawless surprise shot. But what I'll tell you is I've just came off a long hunting season. I've developed some poor habits. My shot's rusty. For those of you who've been watching me in the range, I've been struggling through practice, but that's okay. I know that's how the year starts. And I start with the hinge release because I want to be on the offensive side. I want to be able to be building wall pressure, pulling back and shooting, because if you're shooting a hinge all the time, there becomes a point where you just get in the pocket and you're just waiting and you're manipulating the release and you're waiting for it to go off instead of making it go off. And by making it go off, I'm not talking about punching it. I'm talking about with a tension release, I'm making it go off by committing more and pulling harder and committing to go through my shot, and it's forcing me to trust the float. This is an offensive way to trust the float. Shooting a hinge later in the year for me, after I've completely built that offensive approach, now I can go to something where now I'm working on my patience. I'm making that all day sit. I'm sitting at a water hole. I'm in a tree stand, whatever you want to say. I'm not spot and stalk where I'm on the offense. Now I am actually building patience, and I'm waiting, and I'm being controlled and methodical, and I'm slowing down the movement, and I'm waiting a little bit more. I'm building pressure slower, and I'm relaxing slower. And the more refined I get to a hinge, the better I can do that. And I start to become even a little bit better polished of a blade with accuracy, because I have the offensive, but I'm also okay with waiting until I get there, and then trusting that I'm in the pocket, I'm in the pocket, I'm in the pocket, and it's going off. Ideally, I want the same result, but the difference is how much movement or how much of the offensive do I need to get there. In an ideal situation, you can shoot both of these releases with the exact same pace and with the exact same accuracy, but what I'll tell you is, for me, I have to start my season with tension and learning to be dynamic, not being static, not being lazy, but understanding my wall pressure and building consistency on my wall pressure, and understanding my draw curve. And once I've established that, I can change over to that hinge and just slow down my movement, trust my time on target a little bit more, and everything really comes together. So let me show you one more with attention.